Happy New Year to everyone. My disciple Madhuri Devi Dasi and her husband Rajavidya, who live in Brisbane, Australia, requested that I speak about verse 518.9 from Srimad Bhagavatam. So why not? So I will speak about that verse. First, I'll read the Sanskrit. That's Bhagavatam 5.18.9, translation and purports by Prabhupada. So the Sanskrit is as follows. Swastyastu Vishwasya Kalak Prasidatam Dhyayantu Bhutani Shivam Mito Dhya Manascha Bhadrang Bhajatad Adhoksajay Aveshatang no Matirapya Haituki. So Prabhupada's purport. May there be good fortune throughout the universe, and may all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga. For by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us all engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendence, Lord Sri Krishna, and always remain absorbed in thought of him. So Prabhupada writes in his purport to this verse, the following verse describes the Vaishnava, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Just like a desire tree, a Vaishnava can fulfill all the desires of anyone who takes shelter of his lotus feet. So, Prabhupada also says Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Dharma are meant for persons who are completely free of envy. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a fine purport in this regard. And then he quotes the Shikshaska Nanda Tenuja. Then Prabhupada says, if the Krishna consciousness movement spreads all over the world, and if by the grace of Krishna everyone accepts it, the thinking of envious people will change. Everyone will think of the welfare of others. Prabhupada says, if people think of Krishna always, everything will be all right. Some people argue that if everyone thought of Krishna in that way, the whole universe would be vacated because everyone would go back home, back to Godhead. However, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this is impossible because living entities are innumerable. If one set of living entities is actually delivered by the Krishna consciousness movement, another set will fill the entire universe. So let's go over the Sanskrit of this verse. And again, Happy New Year to everyone. So let's go over to the Sanskrit. Swasti astu vishwasya. Swasti in Sanskrit means literally well-being. Su asti, well-being. Let there be well-being. That which brings about well-being is called in Sanskrit swastika. That's where the word swastika comes from. Anyway, swasti astu, let there be well-being, vishwasya, of the universe, kalak, and prasidatam, let the envious person be pacified. Let the envious person be satisfied. Dhyayantu bhutani, and let living beings meditate, dhyayantu bhutani, shivam, on the good, mito, on the mutual good. Mita in Sanskrit is mutual. Let creatures, let living beings meditate on the mutual good. What's good for everyone mutually. Dhiya, with intelligence, let them meditate. And manascha bhadram bhajatad, and let the mind experience what is virtuous. And adhoksaje aveshatang no matir pyaituki. And let our mind be absorbed in adhoksaja, Krishna. Indeed, ahituki, without material motive. Without material motive. So, it's a nice verse for the new year. Let there be well-being for the universe. May the envious be pacified. May all beings meditate upon the good, the mutual good. Meditate with intelligence. And let our mind accept what is right, what is virtuous. And let our consciousness, our mind be absorbed without material motive in Lord Krishna at Hoksaja. So this is a beautiful thought. It is a series. These are prayers offered to the Lord by the residents of Jambudvipa. So all the verbs in this verse and there are in the imperative case. There are 4 lines in this verse. Each line has a verb, which is imperative. So astu, let there be. Dhyayantu, let them meditate. And bhajatan, let one accept, let the mind accept what is right, what is virtuous. And aveshatang, let our consciousness be absorbed in the Lord without material motive. So this verse is a series of, you could say, exhortations, or let this happen, let that happen, let people do this, let them do that. It's a series of imperatives. And Prabhupada says, just like a desire tree, a Vaishnava can fulfill all the desires of anyone who takes shelter of his lotus feet. So a simple question, if we want to be sort of, what's the word? Self-critical, realistic here. We could ask the question, are we all satisfied? Because Prabhupada says here that, or are we Vaishnavas? What does it mean to be a Vaishnava? It says a Vaishnava can fulfill all the desires of anyone. That means that it's just like if you're trying to get to, let us say, if you're trying to get to Frankfurt in Germany, and someone can tell you how to get there, and so therefore that person can fulfill your desire to go to Frankfurt, Germany, but you have to actually follow the directions. So if a Vaishnava can fulfill all desires of anyone, to what extent are all of our desires fulfilled? To what extent are we satisfied with our life? Prabhupada says a Vaishnava, or actually Prahlad Maharaj, always thought of the welfare of his father. Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Dharma are meant for persons completely free of envy. So are we completely free of envy? And then in Vishwanath Chakravarti's purport, he's talking about, of course, Prahlad and Lord Nrsingadev and Prahlad's purity. So then Prabhupada writes, if the Krishna consciousness movement spreads all over the world, and if by the grace of Krishna everyone accepts it, the thinking of envious people will change. Everyone will think of the welfare of others. So here, it's New Year's Day, 2019, and people, it's common, they make resolutions for the new year. So to what extent are we really thinking of the welfare of others? Because Prabhupada says, if by the grace of Krishna everyone accepts the Hare Krishna movement, then everyone will think of the welfare of others. So, as we know, we're all very busy. We have so many duties. Most devotees have families, and that's a lot of hard work. It's not easy, especially in this age. It's not that the women just kind of stay at home and churn butter or something, and their husband is simply out in the field with the ox cart a few hours a day, and then everyone sees everyone else all day, and uh, you know, and then after you've harvested your crops, you get a few months when you can sort of take it easy and maybe mend the fences or whatever. Life nowadays is very difficult. It's all these household conveniences, as they're called, all these comforts that were supposed to give us more free time, like washing machines and dryers and stoves, gas and electric stoves and cars and all these computers, all these things were supposed to save us time. And of course, studies show that people have less free time, much less free time than before all these labor-saving devices. So are we really thinking of the welfare of others? Like if you look at the Hare Krishna movement, if you sort of take a step back and look at it, is it a movement that is where everything is focused on trying to help others? Of course, we have to have our own practice. There are, of course, many excellent preachers in the Hare Krishna movement. But is it a fact that the movement as a whole is really focused on the welfare of others? Or are most devotees just trying to get by, trying to live their lives, and kind of absorbed in their own problems, whether financial or family, or those are usually the main things, family and paying the bills. And of course, we may have our own, as the term goes, emotional issues. People, devotees, may be struggling with their own emotions. Sometimes one may experience depression or anger or frustration and so on. So this is a beautiful verse for New Year's resolutions, but I have to say, to be honest, as a lifelong member of ISKCON, I've actually been a member of ISKCON now for almost 50 years. My 50-year anniversary is coming up in several months. So I have no doubt that this is Prabhupada's movement. I have no doubt that I should spend my life trying to serve Prabhupada's mission, Prabhupada's movement. But sometimes service means to be very honest, and like, for example, if a mother or father love their child, that doesn't mean that if the child's sick, the parents say, no, don't say he's sick, he's fine. Why do you say our child is sick? Don't you love your child? That's weird. In other words, loving a child doesn't mean that you hide the fact that the child is sick. In fact, unless you admit that the child is sick, how can you help your child? So real love means to open your eyes. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I've changed or whatever, but there's a very important sense in which it doesn't feel exactly as it used to feel to belong to the Hare Krishna movement. Let me put it that way. And I don't mean that I doubt that I should be in Prabhupada's movement, as I said. It's not something so radical that I'm questioning whether I should even be a member of ISKCON. It's not. Even for those of us who are loyal to Prabhupada and loyal to ISKCON, there's something very good, I believe even something magical, which one does not experience so much nowadays in the Hare Krishna movement. I mean, obviously in our own spiritual life, if we chant Hare Krishna sincerely, then that is magical. If we follow Prabhupada's program for going back to Godhead, then yes, there will always be magic in our life. But I believe what I'm talking about is that when I was younger, maybe it's because I was younger, but it really felt so strongly that I was in a movement. I was in a movement. And of course, back then, now I feel more like I belong to a religion. And of course, there are many excellent preachers, there are many devotees who are dedicating their lives to preaching, but still, if you look at all of ISKCON, in the West at least, I think it does feel more like a religion than a movement. To be fair, according to sociology, religion, or just serious studies, a movement does have to achieve a certain level of stability, and it does have to institutionalize in various ways just to survive. The movement has to be organized and stable and has to be, in a sense, a religious institution in order just to go on. And certainly in the early days, the movement was not nearly as stable as it is now, but of course one can become so stable that one is virtually inert, can become a type of inertia. So when we were young, I joined the movement when I was 20 years old, and I took sannyas when I was 23, and I became GVC when I was 25, and I became a guru when I was 29. Anyway, so in those days, because we were very young, it's easy to say we were just doing the best we could. We were young, and what did we know? So we just did the best we could. But then the years pass, and at a certain point, it's reasonable to expect someone to be wise or mature or intelligent and to have the power to look objectively at what is happening with and within and to and by the Hare Krishna movement. There's 4 prepositions for you. So everyone knows what my position is. Everyone knows that I'm anxious to see ISKCON make more practical efforts to fit in to society, because what we know from history, you can't really stand outside of a society and at the same time save it. So I have mixed feelings actually about this, about Prabhupada's purport. I mean, I accept it as true, and I accept it as profoundly true. So I don't have mixed feelings about that. But when I apply these statements to ourselves, it's not obvious to me, for example, that let's say you go to a Hare Krishna temple, and then maybe you go to some other religious institution. It could be a church, it could be some New Age thing, it could be a Buddhist temple or synagogue, whatever. I should mention mosque, right? Not to be sectarian. But is it obvious to us that in the ISKCON temple, that's where you're going to get the best reception? That's where you're going to find the most compassionate people. That's where you'll find a community where people have the most loving relationships among them, the best marriages, the best children, in terms of children that are developing excellent character. If those things, and if there are other movements or other institutions or programs that clearly do better than at least some temples, then what does that mean? Of course, in one sense, the obvious meaning is that, well, not every devotee in this movement is really, playing their best game. You could say that. I don't really doubt the power of this process, but are we, our devotees, are the people who joined ISKCON, are they actually capable of understanding what Prabhupada is actually saying deeply enough? Are we capable of practicing bhakti yoga powerfully enough so that there really is a perceptible difference between, let's say, our character, our consciousness, the way we treat other people, the way we treat each other, the kind of families we form, the kind of communities we form? Is there actually a perceptible, significant difference? Two important qualities. Is there a difference which is perceptible? You can actually see it. And significant. It's not a trivial difference, like, maybe they have 398 points and we have 399 points. Is there a significant and perceptible difference between in the level of compassion, in the level of good behavior, in character, in again, the ability to form lasting marital relationships, and the ability to form powerful, lasting friendships, in the level of compassion, which manifests as in the way we treat each other and the way we treat visitors or guests or people we meet? Is there a perceptible, significant difference between us and people who have chosen other traditions or other movements? And if there's not a perceptible, are our children better behaved? Are they, if there's not a perceptible, significant difference, then how do we reconcile this with Prabhupada's purport? I think that's a good question. I guess one of my New Year's resolutions this year is to ask that question again. And if it turns out to be the case that, well, if you go to, let's say you were just like a neutral observer, and let's say you go to various Hare Krishna temples, because some of them are really great and some of them are clearly less great. So let's say you go to a Hare Krishna community, an ISKCON community, and then you visit other communities, and let's say you didn't know which was which. Let's say somehow, I don't know, you were blindfolded, or by some contrivance, you didn't know which community was which. You just met a group of people and talked about other things. You talked about topics which would not reveal which religion or which spiritual movement you were dealing with. And so if it was like sort of, as I say, a blind experiment, so that your loyalties or your preferences cannot influence your decision, would you conclude that, yeah, the best people, the nicest people, the most compassionate, the best families, the community where people seem to have the best relationships, friendships among themselves, that the best one was this one? And then it turns out that's really great, because it turns out that was ISKCON wherever. ISKCON in this city, ISKCON in that city. I wonder if that would really happen. I know there are some temples where that absolutely would not happen. It absolutely would not happen. So, so here we are. We have all these purports, which are powerful and talk about an ideal state, talk about the way, in a sense, things should be. No one is envious of anyone else. In Krishna consciousness, no one is envious of anyone else. So everyone thinks of the welfare of others. So a simple question, in your experience in ISKCON, is it your experience that no one is envious of you? And that everyone that you meet in the Hare Krishna movement does not envy you, number one. And number two, is always thinking about what's best for you in a rational, non-fanatical, non-ridiculous way. People are actually thinking of your welfare. If that's not the case, if it's not the case that no one that you know in the Hare Krishna movement envies you, in other words, if you do know some people that envy you, or and so on and so forth, then what do we do? Where do we go from here? Of course, we have to, as what's the expression nowadays, up our game. We have to, our own practice, we have to become more and more serious about our own practice of Krishna consciousness, and really pray to Krishna to re-spiritualize this Kali Yuga, this material world, which is what Prabhupada really wanted to spread this movement. He talks about if everyone accepts, if everyone can become part of the Krishna consciousness movement. So Prabhupada, he's talking about it hypothetically, but still that clearly is a vision. That's what he would like to happen. So ultimately, probably all we can do is just try to do better in our own life, because as we all should be old enough to know, we can't really change the behavior of everyone around us. People, especially in this age, everyone basically does what they want, and it's not very common that people actually take advice from other people, even good advice. So therefore, I think all we can do is just really, really try our best, and individually to be empowered to help us others. Here's one comment. Honestly, there are a good number of people in the Hare Krishna movement who are very humble. I've seen people with degrees from big places, but the problem is they are too kind and are ready to accept anyone. This is from Sri Chupurani. This is dangerous, as some bad people can take advantage of this kindness. Honestly, some very talented engineers, computer scientists are doing an amazing job. I have not seen an arrogant person in ISKCON. Some have degrees from big places. Well, thank you. Thank you for that comment. I wish I could say that, but anyway. So that's the message, really. I don't want to leave you depressed or hopeless. But for all of us, it has to start with ourselves, because that's what we really have control of. As we know, in this world, it's hard to control other people. You can't really control your spouse. You can hardly control your children. It's the nature of this world. Nowadays, especially, and everyone, especially in the West, this sense of individualism, and everyone wants their freedom. It's very strong. And so somehow or other, each of us can try our best to advance in Krishna consciousness and to be the Vaishnava that Prabhupada describes in this purport. Try to be that Vaishnava that Prabhupada describes here in the purport. And if we can advance in our own Krishna consciousness, that will affect many other people. Of course, it will change our life, and it will also affect many other people. And I think any type of solution, any type of progress for ISKCON has to begin on an individual level, where each of us in our own life, because each of us has a life. One may have a guru and offer obeisances, and that's all good. But ultimately, it is your life. All a guru can do, or husband or wife, or father or mother, all anyone can do is try to encourage other people, try to give good advice if they want it, if they'll accept it. But in terms of where do we really have power? Where can we really make a difference? And of course, first of all, in our own life. Because whatever your position is, an ISKCON disciple or guru or man or woman or all that, whatever. I mean, ultimately, every one of us has a life. Every one of us has a life. And every one of us really is in charge of one's own life. Someone may decide that I'm going to accept a guru, for example. So, but even in accepting a guru, it doesn't mean that you give up your responsibility for your own life. It simply means that you, having power over your own life and being responsible for your own life, as Krishna says clearly in the Gita, especially in 6.5 and 6.6, you may choose, in a sense, to delegate authority, let's say, to a guru. I mean, when we say delegate, it often means that we give some authority to a person below us, and so we don't think of the guru as someone below us. And yet there is some sense, perhaps delegate is not the best word, but there's some sense in which a guru can help us only if we give the guru that authority. Because, you know, a guru can't wrestle you to the ground and force you to do something. So ultimately, each one of us is in a very profound sense in charge of our own life, man, woman, whatever. Every one of us is responsible for our own life. And in the name of submission or surrender to a guru, one cannot give up that responsibility. It's like when you offer bhoga, Krishna accepts it and the food comes back to you as sanctified food. So when you give yourself to a guru, a bona fide guru never thinks, okay, now I own this person or this person belongs to me. That would be absurd, because you belong to yourself. And you belong to Krishna. So when you surrender to a guru, a bona fide guru, a mature guru, will tell you, thank you, you are responsible for your own life, and I will help you to the extent that you allow me to help you. But that's something you have to do. And ultimately, it is your life. So all of us should take this responsibility and make the best of our lives. And the more we advance in Krishna consciousness, the more we help ourselves, the more we can help others. And that's really the only hope for this movement. So, thank you all very much. Here's something from Yamanuja, follower of Yamaraj. Yamanuja Freitas Romero, can someone sincere still progress in bhakti if they don't like Prabhupada? Just because for them it's difficult to process some statements of him, is it bad to be free in that sense? Yeah, I think so. I would say that we all know that Prabhupada said some things which are, to say the least, controversial. Fortunately, none of those statements are about the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. And say someone doesn't like Prabhupada, to see someone who clearly, like Prabhupada, is a most empowered servant of Krishna, someone who gave their life purely to serve Krishna, someone that helped millions and millions of people, and with extraordinary intelligence created a sustainable Hare Krishna movement, just to say, I don't like that person, I think is not a thoughtful conclusion. As I said, we all know there's some things Prabhupada said that are a little difficult for us, not about spiritual things, but about material things. But if we look at all of the extraordinary spiritual accomplishments of Prabhupada, how he gave his life to save so many people, to say that you don't like a pure devotee who is saving millions of people is doesn't sound very intelligent to me. Vaishnava is saranga, also called saragrahi, which means, Sara means the essence, one who takes the essence, or one who goes to the essence. So to ignore Prabhupada's unique, extraordinary spiritual accomplishments and the unlimited amount of good he did in the world because he made some statements which were kind of typical for his generation and the place he came from about certain material things, statements which in no way affected his complete openness to everyone, regardless of what kind of body they had or where they came from or their gender. Prabhupada was completely devoted to helping everyone equally. And so when you look at Prabhupada's behavior and everything he did, again, to say, I don't like him because of a few statements he made which reflect the world he grew up in, I think is, I think it is inappropriate, and someone that takes that attitude, I think, will have serious trouble reaching an advanced stage of Krishna consciousness. Oh, Luigi Tapo, buongiorno. I miei più sentiti omaggi is Italian. So I'll translate it for you. Obeisances, greetings from Italy. Oh, from Gigi and Beatrice de Albetone. Amici, cari amici, come state? So, friends of Ekavakti, congratulations on good Krishna West in 2019, and so on. So it's not a question, just greetings. So Gigi and Beatrice, a presto, speriamo che ci vediamo presto nel futuro prossimo. So I guess that's it. So thank you all very much, and it's always nice to be able to talk to everybody. And I guess that's the message. Happy New Year to everyone. Again, just to summarize very quickly, each of us, regardless of your situation in this world, what kind of body you have, gender, age, size, what country you're from, what position you have in the world, what position you have in ISKCON, all that. You know, apart from all that, it really is about your personal, intimate relationship with Krishna, how much each of us is willing to surrender to Krishna by purely chanting his holy names, by trying to serve. And the more that each of us surrenders to Krishna, the more we can be empowered to serve Krishna. And no one can stop that. If Krishna is pleased with you, and if Krishna wants to empower you, there's no ISKCON bureaucrat that can stop you. So it's all about your personal relationship with Krishna. It's all about your personal relationship with Krishna, and you have absolute freedom to surrender to Krishna this year, 2019. No one can do it for you, and no one can stop you from doing it. And if you do surrender to Krishna, Krishna can empower you wonderfully. And this is not about bureaucracy. It's not about someone voting this or that. It's about Krishna empowering you. And that's in your hands. Krishna says he reciprocates. And so if you fully surrender to Krishna, Krishna can do wonderful things through you. So that's the New Year's resolution, I think, mine. So thank you all very much again. And Happy New Year, everyone. And Arrivederci. Hare Krishna.